Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going through the top 10 loadouts currently for Warzone. And there's a combination. A lot of times people ask me, well, what are the best loadouts for Rebirth? In general, it's going to be the same loadouts because these are typically the best loadouts. But what usually will happen with Rebirth is because the ranges are a little bit shorter, there are certain weapons that have a little bit more recoil that could actually make it into the mix. But it really just depends on the individual player, their skill set and stuff like that. If you enjoy the video, learn something new, please do me a favor, hit the like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back, double check. Make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Reminder, I do have a discount code for blue light glasses, Steel Series, Gfuel, all kinds of discount stuff. If you're looking to restock on anything or try anything new, feel free to ask me down in the comment section over on Twitter and I'll give you kind of feedback on anything that I have. So when it comes to over here, we have the experimental loadout. This is one that I've always kept in my top 10 loadouts just because it's one of those ones where I can go to my default. This could be the one I'm experimenting with it, try some things out, and I kind of leave the other 9 alone. When it comes to this case, I'm trying a long range AK-47. I've used it in the past, but obviously they've kind of manipulated the meta a little bit and kind of changed damage profiles, and I want to see if it was still good. And I can definitely say that it is still a pretty solid loadout with the GRU suppressors, Spetsnaz RPK barrel, so we're getting the lowest recoil possible and good range. Spetsnaz grip, 60 round mag, and then the 3x optic. If you're going to only use this in solos and duos, you could probably go with the 45, and that'll speed up the aim down sight dramatically. But in quads, which I typically like to play, 60 round is the way to go. PPSH, I'm using it a couple different ways. You'll see in these different loadouts. Right now, I have this as an SMG type build, and it follows the standard Cold War meta, which is a movement build, close range. You don't worry as much about recoil, even though the GRU suppressor does help. Then we got Task Force, Tiger Team, Raider Stock, and 71 drum. If you're going to be playing solos or duos, you could do a 55. You could do a 55 in general, but the damage per mag with the 71 allows you to clean up and thirst multiple players with ease, and this thing ADSs and has good mobility, so you're not penalized significantly by having the 71 round drum. As far as the perks go, EOD is still generally the best way to go, at least in my opinion, unless you feel like you're running up against a lot of the combat scout. Then you're going to go ahead and use cold-blooded if you like and prefer, because of Rebirth, you get the fast healing, quick fix. But generally, a lot of people still like double time as well. So it's kind of how it goes. Overkill is generally what you use. Use 2 primary weapons. If you want to go ghost off the rip, we'll talk a little bit about that and certain weapons that will fit into that mode. And then you'll just use the amp or the Psychov as your true secondary and then just loot somebody that you kill. We'll go over that as well. And then Combat Scout, I think, is probably the best perk because it live pings them. It kind of allows them to re-peek a different window and you know exactly where they are. You can literally track them through the wall. It's kind of broken unless they're using cold-blooded. And then amped if you're using an LMG or a sniper rifle, just because the drop time and the lower time or the raise time are too slow. And then if you have preference towards something else, go for it. But those are generally the 2 that I would go with. Lethal, I usually use a Semtex. If you run up against a riot shielder, that's going to do you a little bit more good than a throwing knife. Thermite would be good too, but the throwing knives are good in Rebirth, for example, or you just want to thirst your kills because you're using a smaller mag weapon like the OTS or the MAC-10 or a shotgun where you don't want to waste that ammo reloading or anything like that. Then we got the heartbeat sensor, which is broken just because it's so useful. It gives you that intel so you could choose your gunfights wisely. Then we have 2 loadouts here, which typically we use the Growl with Restock or Ghost, and then the secondary, we usually mix it up a little bit in our loadouts. And these ones are pretty much the exact same loadout. The reason we have a Growl is so that when we grab our loadout, we get fully loaded. And that's what we're looking at right here with the muzzle, being the monolithic, Archangel, Commando, and 60 round drum. This, obviously with the changes to TTK, this is actually a pretty competitive weapon. It's top tier viable. It's not meta just because it kills a little bit slower than some of the meta weapons, but it's a great option when you're picking up your Ghost or Restock to get fully loaded, or those regain with zone 5 or whatever. Amp is one I'm using now just because of the nerfs and the buffs, and it has a 30 round mag. It's still pretty viable for taking down 2 people, getting a quick reload in with the fast mags, and then going back into action with the Agency Suppressor, Task Force, Ember Sighting. So you're getting the most range as possible since you're not really going to be hip firing this thing. You could go the mobility, but pistols already have insane mobility, so it's not really all that big a deal. If you want the mobility, you can go with the Tiger Team, or you could even put on an optic if you want to challenge a little bit further mid-range, but the damage per mag isn't all that great for those mid-range. You'll drop off pretty hard. And the Serpent Wrap, just get a little bit better aim down sight, or you can go with the stock or an optic. And then we have EOD, Restock, and then I have a Claymore. You can put whatever else you want there. Usually with Restock, I put Claymore. So if I go up to the thing with the lethal, if I want a Semtex, I'll just keep it, or I could swap to those. And then for the Ghost, we do the same thing. Pretty much everything is identical except for Ghost got swapped out. The other weapons you can use in this scenario is the M4. Pretty much you build it the same way. Maybe the Corvus Custom instead of the M16 barrel because a little bit faster. But this one gives you the best all-around mobility, easy to use, clean iron sights, all that good stuff. The only downside is if you play on a high FOV, it's very hard to see anybody at range just because of how zoomed out you are with iron sights. But that's kind of how that one goes. Then we have the C58, which has gotten nerfed a couple different times. Still a little bit hard to use. You can put the EM2 in here as well. It's going to be almost the exact same loadout because we are using a 3x optic. I don't recommend using the default on the EM2 unless you are playing Rebirth. If you play on a little bit bigger map like Verdansk, you're going to want that 3x just because of a little bit of extra optical zoom. Even though, you know, it could slow you down a little bit if you don't have an extra serpent rep. So we use Agency, Ranger, Field Agent Grip, 45 round drum, and then 3x optic. We do the same thing. We use the 40 round on the EM2. So you got a couple bonus loadouts in there too. So you just copy this and then change the 45 round drum. Then we have the Mac 10, which is kind of falling off a little bit because the OTS became so popular, but it's still pretty solid build with the Agency, Task Force, Tiger Team, Raider stock, and then 53 round drum. And then this one is a solid option, good TTK, all around, best mobility pretty much in the game. And then the PPSH is the close second there. And then you can see the Combat Scout, since we are running a rifle SMG, we can get away with not having amped. Then we got the QBZ DMR, and this is a little bit of a weird loadout. QBZ I thought would have kind of overtake the Krig, which we didn't end up seeing just because they reduced the Krig's recoil significantly, so you don't even have to aim. Like before, you didn't barely have to aim. Now, like your stick drift can keep you on target. That's how bad it is right now. If you got downward stick drift, it will keep you on target with the Krig, but that's a different story. So QBZ is still pretty solid if you want to mix it up, if you're just bored with the Krig. But the way to do it, this one, Agency, Task Force, you don't even need an underbarrel with this thing. 60 round drum. They fixed the fast mag part of it. And Serpent Grip, and then the 3x, or you can get rid of the Serpent, go with the stock, go with the Raider stock so you get better strafe speed, or you could just go with the underbarrel and get the Field Agent Grip, which does help even though it is a minimal amount. Then we have the SMG DMR, which sounds a little unorthodox, has about a 460 RPM trigger cap. So if you're spamming your trigger about 6.5 times a second, 8 times a second, you'll be pretty solid. And you'll kind of know that it sounds consistent if you're hitting that trigger cap. Agency, titanium for the faster rate of fire, 30 round mag, and then we got the Serpent Wrap and the Mill Stop Reflex. I like that. I know some people use the Tiger Team for mobility and the Raider stock, and then they'll get rid of these two so you get a little bit more mobility, but it will only give you a 20 round mag, which for me is only good in solos or duos, even though the TTK is pretty nasty. 5 shots guaranteed to kill. If you get 1 headshot, it drops it down to 4. So try this if you haven't already. I did a full video explaining this with the close range meta, and I even have a gameplay over my second channel where I dropped my PR with it, which is pretty nasty. Then we got the PPSH with the Swiss. This is more of a sniper support. They kind of destroyed the Milano a little bit. Milano is still a great option, kind of bored with it. PPSH kind of fills in that gap, especially if you build it out this way. Grew Suppressor, Tiger Team, Microflex LED, Spetsnaz Grip, and then 71 round drum mag. If you are going to be playing this in solos or duos, you could drop down to the 55, like I said earlier. And with this one, you just got to be aware that it doesn't kill quite as fast up close as some of these other broken SMGs in the DMR. So you just got to balance out your play style to fit that where you're getting the first shot, and aim for center mass, since it takes too many headshots to lower the TTK that it doesn't make sense. You're not going to actually get those TTKs. So just aim for the chest, make sure your shots land pretty much. And then we got the Swiss, pretty much similar build. Grew Suppressor, Combat Recon, 5 milliwatt, SASS Combat, and then we got the Serpent Grip. Some people do like the Bruiser as well because you get the aiming stability. So, you know, it just depends on how you want to use that. You go ahead and swap that out, and then you get the Bruiser, and this is how you would set it up for range, bullet velocity, all that type of good stuff. And you can see we're rocking amped with this one because we are going to be using a sniper. So you don't want to get penalized where you're swapping weapons and it takes you a 1.5 seconds or something like that. You just get destroyed. Cold War AK, still the best sniper support in my opinion. Versatility is through the roof. If you use a 45 round mag, you can get away with it. Get a quick reload. Reload's pretty fast. And then you're good to go. Like I said, with the other one, you could rock 60, but it does slow you down quite a bit. And this one's built more for Grew Suppressor, helping with recoil, bullet velocity, range, Serpent Grip, with the recoil, 45 for the reload, movement, Serpent, and then we got Microflex LED because I don't like the iron sights. I am like way more accurate with the Microflex LED, plus something short to mid range, because we're combining with the sniper, which Car 98 is still premium. You could swap out SPR if you want, but Car 98 is just so good. Monolithic 27-inch barrel. We got the tack laser, sniper scope, and then the precision comb. And then again, this one has amped. And then we move into the top 3, which is the FARA OTS. And the FARA is still nasty. One of the biggest drawbacks for the FARA is if you are challenging multiple teams, the reload is kind of slow. And the faster reload makes the ADS slow. So it's kind of like, where do you win? You could drop the skeletal stock, but it will all depend. So Grew Suppressor, Liberator. So we get a little bit better aim down sight. The recoil is not all that much. But if you feel like you need a little bit of help, you could go the Spetsnaz grip or go with the RPK barrel. And the combination of those over a skeleton stock will actually, this thing won't move nearly as much, and its TTK is way better than the Krig consistently if you're landing those shots. So pretty straightforward there. And then the OTS, we got Grew Suppressor Task Force, Tiger Team, Skeleton Stock, and 40 round fast mag. And this one got significantly better after they buffed it and then they nerfed it. They fixed the iron sight thingy where it didn't have the wonky thing. So you save the optic, you get more mobility, and this thing is nasty. You usually get 2, maybe 3 kills if you're lucky, get a quick reload in, and then take on 2 additional people. So this one, you got to be prepared to challenge 2 people at once, take them both out, get a quick reload, and then get back into the action. And you can see we're with Combat Scout because we don't need that extra weapon swap speed. Then it gets us to the Krig, which is pretty much tried and true. But since they lowered the recoil, you actually do not need an underbarrel anymore. It's just so stupid. Like I said, if you have stick drift, this thing will aim and pretty much go straight on its own. Agency Suppressor, you can go Ranger or Mil-Spec if you want the extra range. This is kind of where I'm leaning towards now, just because the extra range becomes important after they did the range nerf. And this will usually carry you so you get enough range where you're not feeling like it's nerfed most of the time. And it has less recoil than it had before, so it's kind of dumb. Raider stock for the extra mobility, 3x and the 60 round mag. The OTS is pretty much the same. Grew, Task Force, Tiger Team, Skeleton, 40 round fast. And that's going to bring us to the broken weapon, and that is the Stoner. So right here, Agency, Task Force, 4x. It's too easy to hit shots. And then Field Agent Grip, and then you can do the fast mag, so the 120. I generally lead towards the 120 just because this is enough to down, thirst, and then time your reload accordingly. This one, usually a lot of times you'll use the 75 bullets, you get 2 down, then you got to reload, and it's like, oh man, now they're getting back up, and you end up in some tricky situations. But if you're playing solos, fast mags is plenty, or no fast mags at all, and then maybe put that towards like an ADS grip on the rear grip. And then we got the Bullfrog, which is pretty good just because it's really consistent. I like this one generally because it allows me to fill in that gap. If I do get caught reloading with the Stoner or I down 2 people, the Bullfrog is accurate enough for me to hit those people. Even if it's not doing a lot of damage, I can at least thirst them. Or if somebody starts sprinting away, I can still down them. So that's why I like the combination with this. A MAC-10 fits in there as well. There's a few SMGs there where they're super easy to control and you're able to hit that range. PPSH, MP7, there's a lot of great options. So Grew Suppressor, Task Force, Tiger Team, Skeleton Stock, and then Serpent Wrap so we get the better ADS. If you do not like the iron sights, sometimes I don't. It really just depends. You can get rid of the Skeleton Stock and then put an optic or the Serpent Wrap. But keep in mind, the Serpent Wrap is kind of nice to have a little bit faster for the Grew Suppressor. And that's kind of how I build it out. And you can see this one's with AMP because we're using LMG. This is my top 10 currently. Includes way more than 10 weapons. If you have questions about like other long range options that are great, I would check out my previous video where I talked about the long range options. If you're wondering what's good for short range, then go ahead and check the previous video before that because I cover that. And this gives you a good idea of the combinations between those for the weapons I didn't cover and where they fit into the meta. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, hit the like button. If you're brand new and want to find your way back, double check, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. If you are looking for any content related to gameplay using these weapons, go ahead and check out my second channel, which is just more JGOD near the top of the description. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.